For the first time in a long time, the Detroit Lions are actually considered Super Bowl contenders. But the question is how wide open is their window, and how are the Lions going to take advantage of their newfound window? We're going to talk about it in today's episode, folks, so stay tuned.
We used to be a team no one respected. We used to be a team no one feared. That was then. This is now.
First victory of the year on the line. Goff's got it. Back, looks, throws, end zone. Yes! Caught!
You know who we are.
10, 5, end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions.
And you know where to find us. We won't be far. We'll be on your front porch waiting for you. We are the New Era Lions. And
we are driven by Detroit.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving in. But before we dive on in, I just want to give again a big round of applause and thank you to my loyal subscribers and fans that are coming on back. It means the world to me that I have such loyal fans, and I just want to also say to all those that are tuning into my show for the very first time, thank you all for giving some of your time and devoting it towards watching the show. I hope you all enjoy the content, but even more so, I hope to gain your subscription if I've earned and deserved it. And with that being said, to everybody, I just want to say, God bless. I hope you all are having a great day, and let's dive into the show here. So, let's take a look at this, folks. Let's consider this. The Detroit Lions have officially had their Super Bowl window opened. Like, actually kind of wrap your head around that one for a minute. The Lions have a Super Bowl window. They have a Super Bowl window in where they can officially be considered Super Bowl contenders. It's no longer, oh, well, you know, they are competitors. They could possibly make it to the playoffs. No. It's no longer playoff time for the Lions. It's like, okay, you guys are considered Super Bowl contenders. You guys are considered a team that can actually make a threat, a run for a Super Bowl. And when you consider how long of a time it has been for the Lions to be in that consideration, you'd have to go all the way back to the Super Bowl time for the Lions would have been in Barry Sanders' era. Like, that's how long it's been for the Lions to be considered in a Super Bowl conversation of any type. But you have to take a look at the reason why that's the case. The Lions have a very well-built, a very sustainable roster that has ensured them long-term availability to make a run at the Super Bowl. And that has been because of how well Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell have orchestrated and built this roster. Now, I'm going to say this. Some fans are going to say, well, we've heard all this before, David. Again, we heard about this in the Barry Sanders era. We heard about how the Lions had this, that, and the other thing. And they're going to say, you know what? It's not going to be any different this time. Well, here's why I'm going to say it is different this time. Here's the reason why I do believe that this is a different type of a Super Bowl opportunity for the Lions. And here's just some of the reasons as to why I think that. First and foremost, let's take a look at the quarterback difference here. Jared Goff is better than any Lions quarterback that the Lions had in the 1990s. He's better than Rodney Peete. He's better than Scott Mitchell, better than Eric Kramer, better than Andre Ware. He's better than all of them. Jared Goff is substantially better than any quarterback the Lions had in the 1990s. So that right there easily already guarantees a much higher probability for the Lions getting to the Super Bowl. Let's just put it this way. If Jared Goff was playing in the 1990s, the Lions probably would have won a Super Bowl or two. That's how confident I am in that. So there's that point. Number two, the Lions roster of today, in my opinion, is a much more complete, explosive, and comprehensive overall team than what was in the 90s. I'm not saying that 90s team was bad by any stretch of the imagination, but just take a look at the types of players in the complete roster that this Lions team has. We have great skill possession players, except for the cornerback room. We have a great tight end. We have a two-headed monster at running back. We have a great offensive line. We have good defensive line players. We have good linebackers. We have good safeties. That's all there. This is a great team. So in my opinion, it's a much more complete, explosive, comprehensive team than what we had in the 90s. Now, the next point I'm going to say here is also important. The ownership that the Lions have now is much better and more involved than what it was in the 90s. Again, I give all credit to where this turnaround has come from, mostly to Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, but more so even to Sheila and that's why I'm going to say ownership is better, is because Sheila has done something that neither her mother nor her father did. And Sheila deserves a lot of credit for how this team is where it is. Now, granted, she's not the one that's making the decisions on who gets signed, but she is the one who made the decision on who's sitting in the chair making those decisions. And she definitely needs some credit for that. And then, talking about those guys that are making the decisions, the team leadership is arguably better than anything the Lions have had in a long time. Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, those two know exactly what the other is thinking. They've got a perfect idea of what they're looking for in the roster, and they've built this roster exactly the way they want it to. And again, that's how we're going to end this whole thing. The team has been built the right way. It has a strong core nucleus of young players. It's had good key free agency signings, but it's built basically through the draft, which is what you want done. So this team is in a lot of ways different than what that team was in the 1990s on multiple fronts. So because of these reasons, not only is the Lions Super Bowl window wide open in my opinion, but it's also a stable open window, and it's a valid open window. And the reason I say valid is because some people have said, well, how really valid or how really, sincere or genuine is this window? Is it just because they had a one great year, or is it something that they can do for multiple years? Well, the way I look at it is this. When you go from 3-13-1 to 9-8 to 12-5, you're showing steady progress, and you're showing that the team is constantly getting better. So in my honest opinion, I think that the Lions Super Bowl window is a consistent, stable, valid, open window, and all they have to keep doing is following the same formula that got them there, which is smart additions through the draft, good free agency additions, and tough, gritty nature players. Now, let's take a look at this for what it is. The team being the way it is right now is a huge credit to Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, because a lot of the reason for where the Lions Super Bowl window is right now is because of great team building. And Campbell and Holmes are the primary benefactors of that reason. Because you have to think about it. Through 3 straight drafts, Holmes has found great, absolutely stupendous rookie talents for all 3 of those drafts. The very first draft, he finds St. Brown, McNeil, Sewell. He also finds Melifano, who's been a late bloomer. The next draft, he finds Hutchinson. He finds Jamo. He also finds James Houston. Then you go to this last draft that we just had with freaking Jack Campbell, Brian Branch, Sam Laporta, and freaking, just all of these great talents. Jahmyr Gibbs as well. Pardon me. I wish I had put him in there sooner. But my whole point is this. All of these guys have built this team the way it is because Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell found guys that fit exactly what they were looking for, and they've come out on the field and have done beautiful jobs in getting this Lions franchise and team where it is right now. So a lot of credit for where the Lions Super Bowl window is. It goes towards the fact that the team has been built correctly. It's been built the right way. But again, you also have to go back to what I had said earlier. The Lions also having a franchise quarterback that's in his prime, also set to be signed to a long-term extension to guarantee that safety of the team being where it is right now long-term, has provided themselves also that Super Bowl window. Because you got to take a look at it. Jared Goff has provided the Lions with solid leadership and also very excellent production from the quarterback standpoint. Again, you take a look at what Jared Goff has done for the Lions since he came to the team in 2021. He's 4th in the NFL in terms of passing yards since that time. He's 7th in passing touchdowns, and he's 10th in passer rating, all while putting up nearly 67% completion rate and keeping his touchdown-interception ratio almost at a 3-to-1 clip. So again, there is a lot of good reason to why I'm saying what I'm saying. And when you consider how well Jared Goff has been playing, with also the fact that Ben Johnson is coming back for yet another season, and the Lions are looking to extend Jared Goff to a long-term extension, it gives the Lions a very, very good secured position where they feel secured in being able to have this Super Bowl window be wide open for them for a long period of time. Because if you got the quarterback, you've got the team all settled, now you're in a very good position. And that's why I think the Lions are feeling part of the way they are. And then you have to take a look at the next part of this, because you're like, okay, we got the players, we got the quarterback, now we need to take a look at the leadership component like I talked about earlier. The head coach, Dan Campbell. I'm going to say this. Outside of the quarterback, not one other person has as big of an influence on a team's direction and attractiveness to other players and other people than the head coach. And I'm going to say this right now. Dan Campbell definitely provides both of those things to the Lions. He is definitely a person that provides a lot of direction to the team, and he's a very attractive draw for a lot of prospective free agents. Because you have to think about it. Consider how much pull, leverage, and influence Campbell has is a definite draw for prospective players, especially when you think about how well the team has performed. Because again, players want to go to teams that are performing and are performing well. They don't want to go to a team that's crap. They don't want to go to a team that sucks. Well, think about it. Dan Campbell's track record speaks for itself. Very first year, 3-13-1. The next year, you significantly improve to 9-8. The year after that, you significantly improve again to 12-5. So again, the track record of success has been proven, at least from that perspective. But take a look at the players that have played for Campbell and what they have said about him. Players have been extremely, highly complimentary of Campbell's leadership style. They've also spoke very fondly about how he communicates and he values the players that he has. And of course, there's also many statements that have come out. Panay Sewell just recently saying about how, hey, if he tells me to jump off a bridge, I'm standing right next to him and I'm jumping. Or people have said they'll run through a brick wall for him. When players hear this kind of, dialogue from other players, when they hear the high recommendations, when they see the success that the team is having, it's a huge draw for players to want to come and play for this team. It's not like in the 1990s. It's not like in the early 2000s, the 2000s and 10s, where we had to dole out a crap ton of money to get people to come to play for us because our team wasn't any good. Now it's like, listen, okay, we can actually negotiate and get players to take less than market value to come in because of what the team is doing. And again, a lot of that has to do with what Dan Campbell provides. His charisma, his leadership, his gritty, above all, genuine personality. That is going to draw players to want to come and play for us, and they're not going to necessarily want to drive us into the dirt by asking us to pay through the nose for their services. So there's that. And then you also have to think about this. The final part of this whole question here is, okay, the Lions have the front office. They have the quarterback. They have the team. So the Super Bowl, wide open. You've got all the components that you need. So what's the next question? How do the Lions take advantage of their newfound and widespread popularity? Because the Lions are a popular team now, not just with fans, not just with the United States. They're popular with players. So how do the Lions take advantage of this? They take advantage of it by, number one, through free agency. Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell deserve a ton of credit for, like I've said, how they've built this team and turned the roster around and developed the culture that they've had in the last 3 years. But I think that because of that, like I just said, the Lions have now become a massive free agent destination for a lot of people. And because of this change in how the team is built and composed and the culture that the Lions have, I believe that the Lions are going to take advantage of getting free agents that previously they would not have had access to because, like I said, they would have had to dole out tons of money to get them to want to come and play. Such free agents that the Lions could really help to have would be players like Josh Allen, Brian Burns, Jalen Johnson, L'Jarius Sneed, Robert Hunt, the guard from the Dolphins, Steven Nelson, Tyler Boyd, the wide receiver from the Bengals, potentially to replace Josh Reynolds. These are all guys that the Lions could use to fill in to either give upgrades or to fill in an absolute need that they really need that would give immediate impact to the team to get over that hump to go to the Super Bowl. Now, I will say this. Just because all these guys are talented, it does not really mean a whole lot because we also know how Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes operate. They want guys that are culture fits. They want guys that are going to fit what they're looking for because they have said it before time and time again. Talent alone is not the biggest motivator for why a player gets signed to the team. They have to fit with Campbell's vision. They have to fit with what the roster is all about. So, that's why I'm saying what I'm saying. Those guys are all talented, but it's also going to come down to what Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes think is best for the team. And they have not steered us wrong yet, so I trust their ability to figure out what guys are best fits for this Lions franchise. But again, the ability for them to not only know that, but to also have guys that want to come in and play for them knowing that, again, huge attractive draw for players that want to come play for the Lions. Because again, it's not about just doling out money. It's not about just winning. It's like, listen, we want to develop a relationship with these players. We want to build a culture that works. So there's that. The next part that I think is going to be a huge advantage for the Lions is how they negotiate with their current players. Because again, we have to understand the nature of the NFL right now. It is a business, and the business is predicated by the salary cap. It's hard to keep players with a team that either, one, they don't buy into what you're trying to sell as far as a culture, or they're not willing to be team players and take team-friendly deals. Again, if we go back to times of the past, the Lions always had to figure out how they were going to keep players because they weren't willing to take team-friendly deals. They always had to pay more money. But if you think about it, the Lions currently don't have that problem for the most part. If they go to a guy and say, hey, listen, we need to restructure the contract so that way we can get some more cap space, or hey, would you be willing to take less money so the guys will play here? We have seen that happen multiple times. Guys like Jared Goff, Big V, freaking Romeo Okwara, they've restructured contracts to free up cap space. Big V actually did it twice. That's what I'm talking about. When you have players that are willing to work with the ball club, that are willing to take less money, that are willing to restructure deals to alleviate cap problems, or they're willing to say, hey, it's not about my financial compensation as much as how do we get this team in a better spot, that means that the Lions, having the $61 million in cap space that they have, 45 of that being what you can use to sign players with from free agency or back to the team, you should be able, with Mike Disner, Brad Holmes, and all the rest of them, be able to figure out how to formulate contracts to make that $45 million work very, very well. Because again, the players are more about team success than they are about getting theirs. Obviously, yes, they want to get paid, but not to the detriment of the team, which is what Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell have harped on ever since the beginning. We are all about team here. That is our culture. We are a gritty team that is all about working together, and the players have bought into it, which should help really greatly in being able to negotiate with current players and also signing free agents. So again, those are the types of players that the Lions have, and those are the types of players that the Lions are going to want to keep. Now finally, the next question to this whole thing for some people is going to be, well, how long is the Lions Super Bowl window going to remain open? I would say that as long as Holmes and Campbell are in town, it should always be open. However, I know that that's neither one practical, nor is it fair to Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, because that puts all the pressure on them. Honestly, if I wanted to be fair and I wanted to be, how should I say this, analytic about it, I would say that the Lions window is open for about the next 5 to 6 years. And here's the reason why. Jared Goff. You have to understand something here. I know that the quarterback position is the biggest and the highest reason why a team is able to have success or not have success. We know this about Jared Goff. He is right now in his prime. The Lions have about 5 to 6 more years of top-end football production left out of him before he could start falling off, because most quarterbacks start falling off once they hit that 35, 36 area. Jared Goff is 29 right now, so he's got about another 5 or 6 years before you have to really start worrying about that. If the Lions are able to maintain that ability to keep friendly deals on the team and keep all the players that they've drafted, which again, the Lions should be able to do that with their newfound culture and their newfound ability to make things work, it should allow the Lions to keep this window open for a much longer period of time than other teams that are trying to do it right now because of cap restrictions. Because again, the Lions have found a way to make the cap space work for them without necessarily breaking the bank. So you have to think about it. You have a veteran quarterback that's in his prime. You have a young team that's excelling in a lot of areas. You have a leadership program in Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell that have established a culture that everyone is buying into. I mean, if you think about it, the Lions, for the next half decade, they should be able to keep this window open realistically, and they should be able to have multiple shots to win Super Bowls. Now, obviously, that's just based upon the Lions itself. That's not taking into consideration other teams that are vying for the Super Bowl as well. That's obviously an opponent or a challenge that the Lions have got to overcome themselves by making sure they're better than the other team. But what I'm saying is the Lions have that opportunity. They have put themselves in a position to where it's no longer outside of their reach or it's just a fantastical fairy tale. It's actually something that is attainable. That's what I'm saying here. The Lions have a Super Bowl window. It's a realistic Super Bowl window. It is attainable, and it's something that I think that is sustainable as well as attainable. But having said all that, I think this is a good place to end the episode. So with that, I'm going to say thank you all for watching another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage you all to do one of these 3 things. Like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. If by chance you subscribed in the past, forgot to do so at the time, or you just subscribed and not had a chance to do so, please, please, please subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out. But also, after you subscribe, make sure you hit that bell notification icon as well, so that way you never miss any more content that I push out. Again, subscription numbers are always going up, but we want to make sure you turn on that notification icon so that way you guys never miss any more content that I push out. To help in that endeavor, also, please share the content with your Lions friends and family members. Share it here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it anywhere and everywhere you can with anybody and everybody that you can. The more we share it, the better the channel spreads, the better the channel does, and I'm thankful for every share as well as every subscription. And with that being said, to everybody, I just want to say thank you all for watching the content. I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope to gain new subscribers, and if I hadn't gained your subscription, I hope I'll get you another chance to do so later. But until that next time, I just want to say God bless, and I'm going to see you all in the very next episode.